First quarter is officially in the books. We are 9 races into a 36 race Cup Series schedule. And since it's an off weekend, let's take a step back and talk about the best and the worst of the season to date. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. This episode of Out of the Groove is once again sponsored by the fine folks over at Ridge Wallet. They make all sorts of great products over there. Obviously the flagship is the Ridge Wallet itself that I have shown you guys many times. It's great, it's durable, it's slim, fits in your pocket easily. Comes in more than a dozen different styles and colors. And they don't just make wallets, they make all sorts of things including backpacks, like this awesome one they sent me right here. Already has come in handy with me going on location to film at some different racetracks the last few weeks, so it's already been very handy for me. And so I encourage you guys to go check out ridgewallet.com. And make sure you use the promo code GROOVY. In fact, go to ridgewallet.com/groovy and you can get 10% off your order. You also definitely take advantage of that deal over there. Again, I want to thank Ridge Wallet for coming on as a sponsor of Out of the Groove the last couple of weeks. Really cool to see more and more people kind of show their support and really believe in what I'm trying to create over here, and it's all thanks to the support I get from you guys at home. So big shout out to Ridge Wallet again for sponsoring the show. Now this is going to be a really fun episode, guys. The reason I say that is because I get to share my opinion with you all, and you guys get to either agree with me or disagree with me and let me know in the comments. So it's gonna be fun. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, we are a quarter of the way through the season. 9 cup races down, 27 to go. That means we're at the 1/4 mark. First quarter has come to an end. The buzzer has sounded. We have an off weekend. It's Easter, by the way. I should have let off the show by wishing you guys a happy Easter. Hope your weekend is good. Hope you're having a great holiday. Today's episode's gonna be an awards show of sorts. It's the first quarter awards show for the NASCAR season. So without further ado, let's get into it. We got a bunch of categories to go through. Best driver, biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, best race, best finish, all that type of stuff and more. We're gonna go through. I'm gonna give you guys my opinions on all those. And of course, I wanna hear what you think down in the comments if you agree or disagree. So let's get started with the first category of today's show. The first official category is best driver. So through the first quarter of this season, who has been the best driver, best car, best team, best individual performer this season? I'll do this for every category, but I'll throw some honorable mentions up there. Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski have all been really good, but in my opinion, this is maybe the biggest no-brainer on this entire list that I'm about to go through. Best driver this season, Kyle Busch, and it's not even close. Obviously, he leads the Cup Series in wins so far, 3 wins this year. He's the points leader, obviously, he's a 20-point lead over Logano, who's in second, but man, some of Busch's stats are just insane. He has an average finish this year of 3.9. His worst finish of the year is 10th at Texas, and that's a race that he very well could have won if he didn't hit the wall late in that race. 10th. After 9 races. That's insane to me. Love him or hate him, and I'm sure all you guys have very strong opinions about Kyle Busch. He has been the best performer this year on the Cup Series side. It's not even close. Let's move on. Next category. Second category, biggest surprise so far. Again, a few honorable mentions here that could be considered perhaps. Denny Hamlin's been surprisingly dominant this year. Daniel Suarez has been really good. I'll even throw Ryan Newman's name in there. But the biggest surprise through 9 races, in my opinion, has been the other Busch, Kurt Busch. Now he's 7th in points right now, and compared to last year, I mean, that's pretty similar. He was kind of in the top 8 in points last year too. So by that comparison, it's not super surprising to see Kurt Busch 7th in points. He's a past champion, great driver all around, veteran presence and everything. But given that one car that he's driving now, this is his first year with Chip Ganassi Racing, that car last season didn't make the playoffs, was outside the top 16, was even outside the top 20 in points for much of last year. He's taken a 20th place car, and he is 7th in points right now through the first 9 races. That's why he's the biggest surprise to me. I'm not shocked that Kurt Busch knows how to drive a race car. I'm just surprised that one car is looking as good as it's looked. 3 top 5, 6 top 10s, an average finish of 8.9, which is actually significantly better than his average finish last year with Stewart-Haas Racing. If we look at all 36 races last year, which I know is a bigger sample size, but with SHR, the best team in the sport last year, his average finish was 12.1. So he's on a very good pace at the beginning of this year to possibly even best his average finish from last year, despite driving for a worse team. He's got that great average finish mainly because he's been so consistent this year. His worst finish this year was Daytona. He finished 12th. So Kurt Busch, easily the biggest surprise in my opinion. I was just going to be glad if he made the playoffs at the beginning of this year, but given how he's run, he could be a round of 8 contender. You never know. He could be like Newman in 2014 and sneak into the championship 4 at this rate. Kurt Busch, he's been good. Let's move on to a category that probably most people want to stay away from, the biggest disappointment so far. This is another pretty easy category if you ask me, but some people might have differing opinions here. Eric Jones has struggled. He's outside the top 60 in points right now. Chase Elliott has maybe not looked as good as some people thought he'd look. Alex Bowman has dropped off the face of the earth. So there's a lot of disappointments out there, unfortunately, for a lot of the young drivers in NASCAR, but one driver definitely takes the cake in my opinion. The biggest disappointment so far in 2019 has to be Kyle Larson. Through 9 races, he is 19th in points. He has 0 top 5s and only 2 top 10s. His best finish this year was 6th at ISM. The only race where he's looked remotely competitive at, honestly, was Atlanta. He led a lot of laps, but even there he faded at the end and finished 12th, so Kyle Larson's just struggled this year. His average finish is 18th right now, which is not good at all. And 2017 was kind of Larson's breakout year. That's 2 years ago. He won 4 races, looked like a championship contender. And then last year even, he didn't win any races in 2018, but he had 6 second place finishes and made it to the round of 12 in points. I think a lot of people thought with Chevy kind of getting a better feel for the Camaro, maybe 2019 with Kurt Busch being added to that team, maybe Larson would show some improvement again and look like he did in 2017, but so far that couldn't be further from the truth. Some of it is his team, but some of it is Kyle Larson. He's just making mistakes that we have not seen Larson make in recent years. He's just not looked like himself through the first quarter of this season. There's still plenty of time, luckily. He's 19th in points, so he's only a few spots outside that top 16, not too far off. Luckily, there's still plenty of time left this season for him to right that ship and get back in the top 16 and make the playoffs. I still expect him to make the playoffs. I don't think this is going to be a consistent thing, him struggling like this, but up to this point, I think it's undeniable. Kyle Larson has been the biggest disappointment. I had high hopes for him, man. I really did. With Kurt Busch going over to that team, I thought Chip Ganassi as a whole was going to feel rejuvenated, and it's just Kyle Larson just hasn't worked for him. So, I don't know. Let's move on. Biggest comeback is the next category. There are a few possible guys you could go with for this one. A couple drivers who didn't make the playoffs last year, Ryan Newman, Daniel Suarez, are currently inside the top 16 in points, driving very well. So you can mention those guys. But for me, the biggest comeback story of 2019 so far is Denny Hamlin. Right now he sits 3rd in the overall point standings with 2 wins, including that highly coveted Daytona 500 victory. And much like his teammate Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin's been very strong and very consistent this year. His worst finish this year was 11th at Atlanta. His average finish is 5.6, so Denny Hamlin's been all around that top 5 this season. And the reason I say this is a big comeback for Denny Hamlin, last season he went winless for the first time in his career. 2018, 0 wins for Denny Hamlin, and he was eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. His teammate Kyle Busch, meanwhile, went all the way to the championship 4. Denny Hamlin, the other veteran at JGR last season, really struggled compared to Kyle Busch. Going winless last year, but now already picking up 2 wins in just the first couple months of this season's got to be a huge confidence booster to Denny Hamlin. It's a big turnaround. It's a big comeback in my opinion. Hamlin looks like a championship contender this year, whereas last year he was lucky to just limp into the playoffs, to be quite honest. So big turnaround for Denny Hamlin. He is the biggest comeback story so far this year, in my opinion. Best rookie. This is kind of just like a checkpoint in the whole Rookie of the Year look. There's 3 rookies this season, Ryan Preece, Daniel Hemrick, and Matt Tifft. Technically, none of them are driving for great race teams, so nobody expected these guys to be competing for wins on a weekly basis. All 3 of them have struggled so far this year, unfortunately. Last season's rookie battle with Bubba Wallace and William Byron was terrible. They were both running 25th each week. It was not fun to watch and not exciting at all. William Byron won the Rookie of the Year last year, but it's not something he should be that proud of, to be quite honest with you. I thought this year's rookie battle would be a little bit better because Ryan Preece, a little bit older, Daniel Hemrick, a little bit older. Bubba Wallace or William Byron at least was 20 years old last year. At least Preece, at least Hemrick, they're in their mid-20s, a little older. I thought they'd run better this year, but they have not. Hemrick's 28th in points. Tifft is driving for Front Row Motorsports. I didn't really have high expectations for him, but even Ryan Preece is 25th in points. If I have to pick a best rookie, I'm going to go with Ryan Preece because technically he is the highest up in points, 25th. Still not good, but at least Ryan Preece has a highlight this season. Daniel Hemrick really doesn't have any highlights. He spun out a few times, really has been irrelevant. Ryan Preece, at Daytona this year, ran pretty well. Had those couple of impressive wreck avoidances, ended up finishing 8th, got a top 10. Hemrick doesn't have any top 10s this year, neither does Tifft. So yeah, that's why I'm going with Ryan Preece as the Rookie of the Year so far. Getting only 9 races in. But unfortunately, it looks like this battle's not going to be quite as exciting, at least not as interesting as I hoped it would be. Neither of these drivers, Tifft included, have looked at all good this year, so I don't know. What you gonna do? I'm kind of done talking about drivers now. I want to move on to races, like racetracks and events specifically. To start with, let's do best race of the season. 9 races deep. We've had some pretty good ones. And I've talked about this when I do my Groovy Gauge each week. We've really only had, I'd say, 1 race, and it was Auto Club in my opinion, that really wasn't that fun to watch. Every other race had a good amount of redeeming qualities, and I would say was at least above average as far as the entertainment value is concerned. If you keep up with my show though, you know that this is probably an easy choice for me. Best race so far this season, Bristol, easily. It's the race that reminded me why I love short tracks and why I think a lot of other NASCAR fans love short tracks as well. It had it all. 21 lead changes, you had crazy finishes to stages. Remember Ty Dillon won a stage. You had incidents where the leader was getting wrecked at different points in this thing. The race was completely unpredictable. Adding the grip strip on the bottom of the racetrack helped kind of the bottom and that top lanes even out. Really it turned it into a perfect version of multi-groove Bristol. Like, it's still not beating and banging around the very bottom Bristol, but as far as like 2-lane, 3-lane Bristol, I think this is the best we've had it. It was an outstanding race. Unfortunately, the crowd, as was well documented, was not as great as I think most people would hoped it would be. But the racing itself lived up to all the hype. Bristol is my favorite track to watch on TV. It's the race, it's the track that I look forward to watching on TV the most. And this race once again proved why. So Bristol, best race in my opinion. I forgot to mention my honorable mentions here like I've been doing. Daytona was pretty good, especially given that Speed Weeks was really lackluster. The Clash wasn't that much fun. The duels weren't that much fun. The Daytona 500 was actually a very good restrictor play race. It was a pretty darn good race overall. So I could throw that one on here. Las Vegas was a pretty good all-around mile and a half. Even the two other short tracks, Martinsville, Richmond, while maybe not as good as they've been in the past, still very good races by NASCAR standards. Even Texas this year had its best race probably since 2016, so that's worth something. But yeah, best race so far this season, Bristol, easy pick for me. Let's move on now to the last category of today's show. Best finish of the season so far. Quarter of the way through the NASCAR season, we've had a couple pretty good finishes. We haven't had any like all-time great finishes yet this season, but it's still early. We've had a few pretty good ones, so there's definitely some to pick from here. Atlanta and Las Vegas both had pretty decent finishes. Remember Las Vegas, you had Keselowski with a last-ditch effort to try and get by Logano, missed him by that much. That was pretty exciting. Daytona always has fun finishes. But for me, the best finish of this season is the one we saw most recently, just last Saturday night. Richmond, for me, had the best finish this year. I mean, you had 4 cars all finishing within a second of the lead after a long green flag run at a short track. That's fun. That's great. Martin Truex Jr. had to drive the race of his life to get his first ever short track win, had to hold off other veterans, Logano, Harvick, Bowyer, the battle for second where Logano was able to get by Bowyer and then suddenly put pressure on Truex on the final lap. Really exciting, really close racing, clean racing, which is nice to see, I think, for some fans. It was just hard racing and great racing all around. Again, kind of like Bristol, that reminded us why we love short tracks. Richmond, a lot of people's least favorite short track of the 3 main ones on the schedule, but that finish was, in my opinion, the best finish we've seen this year. But I'd like to know what you guys think down in the comments. What was your favorite finish this year? Depending on who your favorite driver is, I guess maybe that varies. If you're a big Hamlin fan, you probably like Daytona more. If you're a big Logano fan, you probably like Las Vegas more. I'm sure there's variances there, but I thought Richmond objectively was the best and most exciting finish we've seen in the Cup Series this year. But there you have it. Those are my first quarter awards for this NASCAR season. Let me know which ones you guys agree with, disagree with down in the comments. I look forward to reading all those. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you as always for watching. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram. You can let me know on there if you agree or disagree with my list. Keep the conversation going over on those social medias. Also, you can check out Out of the Groove t-shirts down by the description. I'm trying to add some new ones on there in the coming days, so keep an eye out for those. Also, a big thank you, of course, to my Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison at Gwas of the Stars, SelfishGifts.com, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason R. Long, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, Ross Corlett, TheRacingInsiders.com, and the rest of these amazing Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for continuing to help me do what I do. Your support is greatly appreciated and definitely does not go unnoticed, so thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great weekend, a happy Easter. I will be back in just a couple days with more Out of the Groove episodes leading up to this weekend's race at Talladega in just 1 week. So, man, come off an off weekend and go straight into Talladega. Super Speedway. That's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. I will see you guys at least a couple times between now and then. Have a good rest of your weekend, everyone. See you very soon.